Now we can move on to implementing the other features. So next, let us implement the search feature. Search is appearing above the table. So let's add some JSX above the table now. So I'm going to add another div. I'll specify a class name as search container so that we can add some CSS to that class. For the search feature, first we have a text box with a placeholder which says search. So let's add that. So I'm going to type input placeholder equals search, and I'll close the tag. And let's also add a ref to this input text box. So I'm going to type ref equals, and I'm going to specify search ref. We'll have to create this search ref now. So let's go to the top of the function, and below the use state line, let's write const search ref equals use ref, and let's pass null as the initial value. To use useRef, we have to import it. So let's do that. UseRef is a React hook, so let's import that from React. So I'm going to specify useRef over here. If you go to the documentation at reactjs.org, the documentation for useRef says that useRef returns a mutable ref object which has a current property, and the return object will persist for the full lifetime of the component. And the documentation also says that a common use case is to access a child imperatively. By child over here, it means a child component. So by specifying a ref over here, what we are essentially gaining is that we can get hold of this element by using this search ref variable now. So let's discuss this one more time. What we have done here is we have created a search ref variable using the useRef React hook, and we have passed in an initial value of null, and we have taken that search ref and we have assigned that to the ref prop over here. And what we gain by this is that we can use this search ref variable anywhere in the code in this component and get hold of this input field over here. And beside the text box, we have a button with the label search. So let's add that. So I'm going to type button and the label is search. And beside the search button, we have a link with the text clear. So let's add that. So I'm going to specify some space over here, and I'm going to add a link. href equals hash, and the text will be clear. And the functionality that we want to implement is that when the user types in some text over here and clicks on this button over here, we want to send a HTTP request to the API and get back the search results and update the table over here. And if we look into the documentation for JSON server, it supports full text search out of the box. So to get search results, all we have to do is in our API call, in our GET request, we'll have to specify a key value pair in the query string. And the key has to be Q, and the value has to be the string that needs to be searched. So in a query string, we have to pass in Q equals and whatever we are searching for. So let's write code for that. For our button, let's add an event handler called handle search. So I'm going to write on click equals handle search. Let's implement this handle search event handler now. So I'm going to write const handle search equals, let's make it an arrow function. And in the function body, what we have to do is we have to get hold of the search term and trigger an API call. Since we have used a ref for the search field, we can use that to get hold of the search term. So let's use that. So we can write search ref dot current, and that will give us a reference to the input field. And if we write dot value, we'll get hold of the string that the user has typed into the search text box. However, we need to take that string and then trigger an API call. And this API call more specifically has to be a HTTP GET request. Let's use a state variable to hold this value. So I'm going to create a new state variable called search term, and the setter method will be set search term, and the initial value will be an empty string. So now we have created a new state variable called search term, and the setter method's name is set search term. Let's use set search term over here. So I'm going to type set search term and pass in this value to set search term. And what will happen is this value will be assigned to the state variable search term. So the state variable search term will have the string that the user has typed for searching. Next, we have to trigger an API call, and we have seen that for full text search, we have to add a query string to the URL, and we have to specify the search term as a value for the key Q. So let's do that. So if we look at our function get books data and update state, we have to modify this URL over here to include that query string and specify Q equal to the search term. So let's do that. So I'm going to modify this string into a template literal, So I've specified the backticks, and I'm going to specify the question mark to indicate the beginning of the query string, and I'm going to specify q equals, and we want to interpolate the value of the search term. So we have to specify search term over here. So I'm going to embed search term over here. So if this function gets called, a get HTTP request will be made to this URL /books, and the query string will contain the search term. So the only thing that is remaining is we have to make sure that this function is called after handle search gets executed. If we examine the code within handle search, we can see that it is updating the value of the search term state variable. So if we specify search term in the array of dependencies for useEffect over here, whenever the search term gets updated, the callback within the useEffect will get called. So let's do that. So I'm going to type search term over here. So what we have done here is we have specified search term as a dependency for this useEffect React hook. And so whenever this changes, this callback, which is the first parameter, will be called. If we do a quick recap of useEffect can take in two parameters. The first parameter is compulsory and it has to be a callback. That means a function, which is what we have here. This useEffect call is taking in only one parameter, which is a callback. There is no second parameter over here. In this example, this useEffect call is taking in two parameters. The first parameter is a callback, and the second parameter is an empty array over here. An empty array indicates that we want this callback to run when the component loads. And this useEffect call takes in the first parameter, which is a callback, and the second parameter, which is an array, which has a variable count1. So the callback, which is the first parameter, will be run whenever the component loads, and the callback will also run when count1 changes. Similarly, in this useEffect call, the callback, which is the first parameter, it will run whenever the component loads, and it will also run when count2 changes. And in this example, the first parameter, which is the callback, that will be run whenever the component loads, and the callback will also run when either count1 or count2 change. So that was a quick recap about useEffect and how the second parameter to useEffect will control when the callback runs. So over here in this useEffect call, we have specified search term in the array as the second parameter. So the callback, which is the first parameter, will run whenever the component loads and whenever search term changes. And search term changes whenever the search button is clicked, because we are calling the set search term function call over here. So the sequence of steps that will happen will be like this. When the user clicks on the search button, the handle search event handler will be called, and within the handle search event handler, we'll get hold of the search refs value. That means we'll get hold of the search text boxes value, and we'll update the search term state variable using the set search term function call. And when we update the search term state variable, since search term is specified as a dependency in the useEffect React hook, the first parameter, which is the callback, that will be triggered. So this line of code will be triggered, and what that will do is that will make a HTTP GET request call to be sent to the API, and the URL will have the search term as part of the query string. When we get back the HTTP response, we take the data within the HTTP response and we update the books state variable using setBooks. And when books gets updated, the table body of the table will get updated. Let's check if this is working as expected. Let's go to the web page. So I'm going to type the value 1 and I'm going to click on search now. And you can see that the table is only showing the rows with the value 1 now. I'm going to change this value to 2 and I'm going to click on search now. And now we are seeing the book record with the value 2. Please note that this is full text search. So we can type title 1 and we can click on search and we'll get back book record which has the title 1 in one of the fields. And similarly, if we type title 2 and click on search, we'll get back the book record which has title 2 in one of its fields. So it looks like search is working. Next, let us implement the clear functionality. So if we click on clear, we want this text box to be cleared and we want this table to show all books. So let's do that. So to our clear link, let's add an onClick event handler. So I'm going to type onClick equals, and let's specify handle clear as the event handler name. So now let us implement handle clear. So I'm going to type const handle clear equals, let's make it an arrow function and open the curly braces to specify the function body. We want to get hold of this input box and clear its value. We are using a ref for the input box, so we can get hold of the input box using the ref variable. So I'm going to type search ref dot current dot value equals, and we want to clear it, so we can clear it by assigning an empty string to it. So I'm going to the web page and I'm going to click on clear now, and you can see that this text box has been cleared, but you can also see that this table has not been updated. This table is supposed to show all book records now, but it is showing the results of the previous search operation. So what we have to do is we have to trigger an API call after we clear the text box. And we know that search term is a dependency. So if we update the state variable search term, the callback pass to the useEffect React hook will be triggered. So let's update search term. Just like we updated the search term state variable when the search button was clicked, let's do the same when the clear link is clicked. So I'm going to copy that and paste that here. So what we are doing is we are clearing the text box by using the ref variable, which is search ref, and then we are updating the search term state variable to the current value of the text box, which will now be an empty string. When the search term state variable changes, since it is specified in the dependencies array in this effect over here, the callback that is passed to the effect will be triggered, which is this method over here, and this method has code to make a HTTP request to the API and update the book state variable. So let's look at the output and see if it works. So I'm going to click on the clear button now, and you can see that all of the records are being shown now. Let's search one more time for title 1, and we'll click on search, and we see the search results for title 1. Let's click on the clear button now, and the text box has been cleared, and we are also being shown all of the book records. So we are done with our search functionality, but let us add a little bit of CSS to this class over here, search container. Let's go to the CSS file and let's add some margin to the search container class. So if you go to the web page, you can see that there is some space between the text box and the upper border of the window. Let's also reduce the font size of the clear link over here. So let's type search container, and let's specify a anchor tag, and let's specify font size as small. And you can see that the clear link has reduced in size. We can reduce the size a little bit further. We can specify x-small to make it even smaller. And now you can see that the clear link is even smaller. So now we are done with the search functionality. So now let us move on to the add functionality.